There's this story I grew up with that I think may get us where we're going today at some point. If you are here for the first time or you are here for the first time this series, let me just start by saying welcome. Before I get there, good morning to you. I want to greet all you guys that way. We're going to head in the direction of this sermon bumper that you just saw, but I want to move us there in an indirect way this morning. And so for me, that indirect way comes by way of this story I heard whenever I was little, and it's just kind of stuck with me through the years. I've gone over it a few times in the time since. If you want a script of it, you can go to Acts 3 in a Bible, New Testament side, go to the right, or just keep scrolling down in an app. You'll find it, Acts chapter 3. This story is one of those that just kind of sticks with you. It's memorable, it's pithy, it's got some different things that you can connect with. It's literally ripped out of the day in life of two guys by the name of Peter and John. As the story goes, they're having what I see as a normal day. And like any normal day, I'm sure for them, it started with the normal morning routine. You got all those things you do in the morning. Then you click into the morning activities, all the stuff that I have planned that I want to accomplish, Clicks over to the afternoon. Here are my to-dos. And on their afternoon, they've got this blip there. There's this appointment that they have to make at 3 o'clock. As it gets close there, then they take off in the direction of the temple. As the story goes, they're headed to the temple around 3 in the afternoon at the time of prayer. They were raised, keeping normal prayer times, and if you can make it, you're going to make it. So off they go. They're following Jesus, but hey, pray to God. It's going to be awesome, right? And so they're making their way through the windy streets of Jerusalem. I imagine, rubbing shoulders, maneuvering around different people. They get close to the temple, and they're approaching this gate called Beautiful. Evidently, it was a good-looking gate. Bing, there you go with it, right? They get close to it, they're going to turn, head into the temple proper, and that's when it happens, right? They get close to this turn, and all of a sudden from down over here, they hear this voice, Hey, you guys spare some money for a poor cripple, right? And they pause and they look down, and to see what they're looking at, you've got to understand this. Right, there's this fella there. You get the backstory on him, start reading around it, and you find it's kind of a sad story. Whenever he was born in such a way that he was crippled through life. He's a lame guy, can't walk. It's now 40 years later, and every day he relies on the generosity of other people, his family, his friends. They're going to bring him to this location, this high capacity, high volume, a lot of people passing location where he can beg each day for his daily bread. And now they look down, right? They're having this avatar moment. I see you, right? They see this guy hand out, trying to see if they can get him through the next meal. Right? And the text, verse 4 says, they see this guy. They see this guy. And if you pause right there, the question goes something like this. What happens next? What did they do next? Because that's really the key, isn't it? And for a lot of you, you just want to rush on from there to the next verse. But before you do, I just want you to sit on that for just a second and notice a couple of things about that story. That first off, it just goes like this, right? That when these guys look at him, it's not so much that they notice the guy as they see the guy and notice that he represents a need. And the second that happens, they guide us into what I call these Acts 3 opportunities that we meet in life. Can you say that with me? They move into an Acts 3 opportunity. Let's do that again. They move into an Acts 3 opportunity. Yes, there we go. In other words, there's this moment in their life where one choice or one action can meet a need and change a situation or a life. There it is. It's an Acts 3 opportunity. We're in Acts 3. It's an opportunity, right? They see this. And the cool part is, whenever you back away from it, what you get about an Acts 3 opportunity, at least from their story, is, first off, it's powerful. Right? You notice in this moment, they literally have the ability to do something to change the course of this guy's life. I don't care if it's just giving him enough money to buy a sandwich, right? At least they got him through the next meal. Before that, he was wondering what he was going to do for lunch. After that, he's not wondering any longer. I mean, he's got that nailed down, right? Because of this moment, if they move in it, they can change the course of this guy's life. Short term, long term, doesn't matter. There you go. That's the first thing you can pick up about this that'll prepare us for where we're headed. The second thing that's really going to hook you up here in a second is this. Thing you got to know about Acts 3 opportunities and what you're seeing in this story and what needs to stick about it is this. They're absolutely commonplace. They're absolutely commonplace. Every day, you and I are going to come up into contact with any number of them. I mean, just think of all the similarities between their story and ours off the bat, right? How many of you, it's by show of hands, I said they probably had some morning routine. How many of you were able to go, yeah, probably, because I do? How many of you have a routine that you go through in the morning to get ready for the day? Yep, that's pretty much all of us except the two of you who should comb your hair, like get your mom to hook you up. I'm just playing, right? Yeah, it's one of those. I may not have, natural structure in my life, but boy, let me tell you, in the morning, I'm like hyper-structured guy. Certain things come out at the certain time and get used and then get put back a certain way. I mean, there's this routine you click into. Like these guys, chances are you wake up in the morning, iCal, however it works, here are these things that I'm going to knock out in the course of a different day. You have engagements, appointments, you're moving around, interacting, brushing shoulders with people, and because that's true, like these guys, there are Acts 3 opportunities around you all the time. Our lives are filled with them. There's this guy that needs help, that kid that needs some attention. Someone needs some money. The coworker needs a kind word. There's a friend that could use a text, a teacher that could use a little bit more attention to detail. Someone dropped something that you can help pick up. Someone needs something carried. There's a lady over there who's feeling lost and needs someone to go sit. Someone needs your presence. This person over here is sick and scared. There's that guy over there that just talks all the time. Seriously, everyone tunes him out. And he needs to be heard still, right? Acts 3 opportunities. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. And with each one comes that moment where a choice or an action can meet a need, change a situation or a life. And maybe that's what makes what we're talking about today so much fun for me. Because so far, what we've been doing over the past 2 weeks with this series, Fiesta Faith, and the subtitle, Following Jesus, a Partying Process, what we've been doing is just looking at the fact that so often in our faith, in following God, instead of fiesta, instead of joy, we feel more frustration, instead of growth, momentum, feeling like we're gaining ground, oftentimes we can just feel like we're stuck. Right? And so what we've been doing with this is just really fun. We're going to Matthew 6 and we're watching Jesus just lay out these different invitations to this party. Years ago, Tony Campolo said, the kingdom of God, what you're a part of if you follow Jesus, right? Jesus is Lord. The kingdom of God, he said, it's a party. I'm going, okay. That being the case, well, how do we make sure we make it to that party and don't miss out on the party? How do we do that? So what we've been doing is just laying these invitations out. So far, we've looked at prayer. We've looked at fasting. If you're wondering how they play into it, just get the sermons or hit a Sunday rewind, get caught up real fast, right? But today, what makes this one so much fun is that you look at it on the surface and you're going to connect something very common and notice how it can become very powerful. And you're going to do it really quick, right? You go to Matthew chapter 6, and you hear Jesus say this to you. And remember where we're coming from here today, right? Because one of our driving convictions with this series is that reality that so many of us have experienced, where you're at a party, but you still missed the party. Where maybe it's because you got hoodwinked into going, someone forced you, peer pressure, whatever. You're there, but the whole time you're there, you're planning your exit strategy, End of the day, you're going, man, I was there for 2 hours, and I have no idea what went on. I was at the party, but missed it. We're looking at that going, you know what? This party called faith can work the same way, And so what Jesus is doing here is he's given us this invitation, but notice where he goes with it, right? Because those moments we talked about can be so powerful, that's why this one's fun. Because Jesus gives us this invitation to a party. Matthew 6, verse 2 and verse 3, he leads those verses with this phrase, help me with that word, when you give. When you That was pretty good. That was pretty good. I'm not going to lie. You guys it was nice and throaty. That's what I'm talking about right there. Let's do it one more time just for kicks and giggles. When you... Yeah, and the second he brings that four-letter word out, you can go to giving if you want with it. What you notice is it's this invitation to a party. And for those of us, especially who follow God, we realize that this is an invitation that guides us in a little bit different direction than you commonly see. For us, everyone's going to look at that and realize you can give in different ways. Typically, it involves the T words: time, talent, treasure. You're walking into an opportunity. You know, we're filled with Acts 3 opportunities in our life. There's a need there. Can I give time to meet it? Can I give talent to meet it? Can I give treasure to meet it? There it is, giving. But whenever you follow Jesus, the ante is just cranked up a little bit with it. For us, our driver in this begins with God himself. We would say that God owns everything, that God, he created everything. He's the owner of it all. That's Psalm chapter 24. We move from there to say that, well, then he's entrusted us with some of it. 1 Timothy chapter 6, we have time, we have talent, we have treasure because God is a generous God. And not only that, he now expects us all to excel in this. For no reason, Jesus gives the when you on it. Excel in it. That's 2 Corinthians chapter 8, so that the needs of people for which he loves and for which he has given everything. That's John 3:16. God so loved you that he gave his son so that those needs of people that God loves would not go unmet. See, we've got this added motivation behind that word. And so whenever we see it, make no doubt about it, you're going to read that word and just get something that's kind of well-worn. You're like, okay, I got it. Maybe even expected it when I came to church. Yeah, there we go. Preacher's talking about giving. We got that, yada, 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 yada. But I want you to get this about it, though. While this may be a commonly bandied word, this is an incredibly powerful word. Because whenever Jesus uses it, he has this picture in his mind of how this is going to work in our lives to bring us into this fiesta kind of living that he has in front of us. You know, a few months ago, maybe a year ago, I came across this video that gave me a glimpse, maybe, of what that sort of life looks like. And I just thought, you know what? Let's just watch it for a second and see if you can't get a glimpse of what Jesus is talking about whenever he says, when you give. It may be common, but it's powerful. Oh, and by the way, if you know German, you're welcome. The subtitles are in German. All right, here we go.
What did you do to my sign?
I wrote the same, but in different words.
Thanks, love.
Hey, you see that and you realize, that it begins by, something as simple as changing someone's words. Whenever Jesus gives us this invitation to a party, it's about walking into these Acts 3 opportunities that are around us and seizing the moment. Seizing the moment, realizing, you know what, maybe there's something that I can give or contribute here that can bring a little bit of the kingdom of God here, a little bit more love or joy or peace, a little bit more functionality, a little bit more, you fill in the blank. And going from there. I mean, chances are, you're watching that and you're going, okay, you know what? Challenge accepted, yo. I got different areas in my life where I can go, and Jesus certainly wants you to go there. You're married in here today. He's saying, if you want more fiesta in your faith because God has given you much, hasn't even withheld his son so that you could be set free to live and embrace life because of that, you know what? Go a little bit nuts in this area, What Acts 3 opportunities are there even in your marriage this morning? Is there time that needs to be given? Is there a little bit of talent? Honey-do list. Come on now. I had to confess to the first service that I got a honey-do list that had my name at the top. This is a first for me. We need some chairs glued back together. I'm just laying that out there, right? So I quickly scratched my name out and put my daughter Maya's name. And I'm going, what is this list for Maya? I don't think she's capable of it, Joke. A joke, right? That list is an opportunity. You get where I'm at. It's an opportunity I need to take it up on, right? Treasure, buying some flowers, doing something nice. That's just in that sphere. Some of you are here today and you're going, well, I'm not married. I guess you left me out. Okay, cool. Let's play for a second. You got a son, daughter, got grandchildren. You got a mom or a dad. Are you an aunt or an uncle, a cousin, employer, employee? Here we go. Let's just roll with it. Your life is literally packed with Acts 3 opportunities, and Jesus is saying this, that if you're here today and you're saying, you know what, I'm more frustrated than I am, feeling the fiesta, I'm feeling more stuck than I am feeling growth today, then maybe he's saying one of the ways you can look at your life and analyze why is this the case is through this lens called giving. Through that lens. And if you look at it today, what you may realize could be really insightful. That I'm not having it because there's this invitation I'm leaving on the table and not taking up. At one point in my life following Jesus, I was making a contribution, but now I've slipped back into just being a consumer. I've stopped realizing that I am the church and I exist for the world because I follow Jesus, and now I just think the church exists for me. And Jesus says, and if that's the case this morning, then what Jesus is saying here is, good place to start. Good place to start, bad place to end up. But that's not where he leaves the conversation. I love where he goes from here because he gets more specific. I think Jesus looks at our life and he knows this, all right? We're going to take this word, realize it's common, we're going to connect it to things, and off we go. The problem with that is if you look back at your life, oftentimes our lives are filled with starts and stops of things like this with not a lot to show for it. And so Jesus wants to make sure that you're able to take this practice, this invitation called giving, and make it all the way to the party, right? And so what he does in verses 2 through 4 in Matthew chapter 6 is he begins laying out these different motivations. He says your motivation matters. You got to manage your motivation if you want to show up at the party and get the fiesta for your faith. If you look at verses 2 and 3. Jesus starts that conversation with you, and he does it by pointing out these things that drive you in giving. Let's call them like giving drivers. You hit the first two verses, you got the first two. It says this, so when you give to the needy, when you give, watch how you give. Watch why you give. When you give, do not announce it, he says, with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets to be honored by others, which is just a funny word picture, by the way. Look at me, I'm giving. Come on, I'm giving so much more than you. I'm way up here, you're down here. I'm up here, you're up here. Like I'm giving, look at me, spiritual. You, not so spiritual, right? He's just saying, look, check it. But what you got to wrestle with is, to what degree is that true of me? We'll get to that here in just a second. Verse 3, but when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. You read those verses, and what you find is Jesus openly slamming these two different motivations that drive our giving so often, mostly because he thinks they're going to lead us away from this party that God's calling us to. We're going to give, but it's going to move us away from the heart of God, right? You hit verse 2, and you come across the first giving driver. I just call it others. Others. It's this social, interpersonal sort of motivation that we have to our giving. And by the way, these are common and incredibly commonplace. Chances are you've got to do battle with these to get to the life that he's wanting, where the video, what we showed, is more commonplace in your life. What he's saying is this, that for many of us, whenever it comes to our time, talent, and treasure, our temptation is to give because it looks good when we give. There it is. And so if the right people are around and they're looking over our shoulder, the right person makes the right sort of ask, if the right sort of people are going to be there, then I give. That's my motivation. I want to be seen as spiritual. Look at me, I'm up here. Here it is. And so our prime motivation is other people. A few years back, I got a gut check on this myself, and I've shared this story with a few of you anyway. My kids were little at the time. We were driving to the mall in Columbia, Missouri. We're going down I-70, and we take the exit to the mall. It's going to lead us up to Stadium Boulevard, and you got to make a curve off of it and go up the on-ramp to a stoplight that's going to take you down the street. There we go. We make the curve. We're going up the on-ramp, and this pretty familiar scene hit my view. All right, you know this one. There's a guy up there on the corner off the road at the light. Right, and you can see from a ways off, this dude's clothes are in tatters, probably needs a bath in a bad way. He's got a cardboard sign. You even know what it says. Hungry, please help, God bless. 5 words, there it goes. We get closer, and my oldest daughter, who's little at the time, in the back of the car, she says, Dad, what's the sign say? I said, he's hungry. He's hungry. And I hear my daughters like having a conversation in the back, And they're like, oh man, he's hungry. Oh no, right? Because they've got soft hearts. This is great. And then in the midst of that, my second oldest daughter, Maya, she says this, and I'll never forget it. Don't worry, Dad'll help him. Right? She said that, and you know exactly what happened after that. Right? I sped through the stoplight. No, I mean, she said that. I mean, your wallet flies open. It's a steak dinner in the making. I mean, it's just going to happen. And what I wrestle with walking away from that is this. Would I have still had the same motivation to give if I didn't have that voice behind me? Probably not. Here's the deeper thing. If they hadn't been in the back seat, would I have seen that man as a need, or would I have seen him as something else? Some problem, maybe. Some nuisance, maybe. Would my view of that guy have been different? Would it have even been an Acts 3 opportunity or not? You see, whenever it comes to this whole idea of giving because others are seeing us and wanting to give to be seen by others, what you realize is, whenever you're driven by other people, it can drive you where you don't want to go. And all of a sudden, you're given for reasons that have nothing to do with the fact that God has changed my heart. And because of that, I will give and model his heart for the world. I am living my life to take the world that is and make it the world that ought to be. I want to look for Acts 3 opportunities so that I can change what's on the other side of them. Bring it on. I got this. When your motivation's off, I'll even say this. Thing that gets me the most about giving because others are there, when other people aren't around, what happens to your giving? It's done. Right, wrong, or indifferent. That invitation is still on the table. We don't even take it up to drive to some other party. It's still on the table. And so Jesus says this, if you want to bring Fiesta in your faith, you feel frustrated today, walk into an Acts 3 opportunity and give. But as you give, manage your motives, right? Manage your motivation in that. You go to verse 3, and Jesus has already laid out this other motivation that's going to get you into a whole lot of trouble. And if the first one doesn't, get you bound up, if that one hasn't brought enough conviction, this one may. You read it again, he just says, but when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. You do some digging on that, and you realize that what he's talking about is this, that one of the giving drivers that is present and active in our lives so often, you can just call it us or ourselves. There it is. It's this internal emotional motivation where we give because of how we feel while we're giving. There it is. We give because of what we can get out of it. We give because the conditions are right for it. Feels right. Here we go. Boom. There it is. It's like we treat giving like we're at a birthday party, right? You know how this goes. You show up at a birthday party, and you brought a gift. I'm going to give this, right? But notice this. You have expectations of the people who are throwing the party. And is not that true? You're going to show up. What do you expect? You're going to give me some cake out of this, get some drinks. That's right, some lively conversation. There it goes. And maybe if you're really fortunate, you got a little party favor. These are outside just for you guys so you can remember this, right? You've got this. And, if you're really wild and crazy, I'd challenge you to find someone who wasn't here and give this to them. I say that not knowing what's actually in the bag. There you go. It looks good, though. Looks good. No. There's this party favor, right? I've been at a few parties where at the end of it, you look and you brought your gift, but on this table, someone already has laid out these little gifts that you're coming home for, And here's the deal. You look at that and you say, man, what is normal and functional for a party can be absolutely abnormal and throw you off, It's normal course for a party, but if it's the main course of your life, Jesus is going, this isn't working, If you need some sort of party favor, if you need some sort of favor from someone else to butter you up to where you give, the invitation's going to stay on the table, right? If you need someone to scratch your back before you scratch them, if you need them to put a little bit of change in your tank before you give a little bit in their direction, all of a sudden you know how this is going. It's going totally sideways. Jesus is saying, when you give, don't have this sort of internal dialogue that says, what's in it for me? No, just give. Give, and as you do, you're going to walk into these Acts 3 opportunities, and you're going to notice God using you in a powerful way to take the world that is into the world that ought to be, and more to point, you're going to realize that there's a little bit more skip in your step. There's more purpose in your life, more direction right in front of you. And maybe that's why he really emphasizes this whole idea of managing your motivation. I'll just say this on it. Not only will we stop giving if someone's not scratching our back, but sooner or later we don't show up to God's party at all where this is concerned if our motivation is skewed here. Fred Craddock put it this way, and I like this. I wanted to move this in your view. He said, to give my life for Christ appears glorious, he said. Talking about giving. Some of you are already like, yeah, here we go. He said, to pour myself out for others, to pay the ultimate price of martyrdom, I'll do it. I'm ready, Lord, to go out in a blaze of glory. He said, we think giving our all to the Lord's like taking a $1,000 bill, laying it on the table. Here's my life, Lord, I'm giving it all. But he said the reality of it is this. He sends most of us to the bank and has us cash in the $1,000 for quarters. And we go through life putting 25 cents here, 50 cents there. Listen to the neighbor kid's troubles instead of saying get lost. Go to a committee meeting. Give a cup of cold water to a shaky old man in a nursing home. Usually, he said, giving our life to Christ isn't glorious. It's done in all those little acts of love, 25 cents at a time. And there are those little things you really don't want to do. What's in it for me? Not a whole lot. Am I going to stand up front on a stage and people are going to go, wow? No. Okay, bye. Right? It'd be easy, he said, to go out in a flash of glory. It's harder to live the Christian life little by little over the long haul, and yet that's what we're called to. And so Jesus in verse 4 points us past those motivations that get us lost in the game and points us to one that drives us toward the life he's after. And if you're here today and you're struggling, you're here today and you're just not feeling good direction, good purpose, maybe this is where you land today. And my prayer is that it begins to guide you into what Jesus has for you right in front of you. It guides you into those moments and you make the most of them. In verses 3 through 4, Jesus says this. We're backing up to move forward. He says, but when you give to the needy, don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. Don't be looking at it going, what's in it for me? What can I get? So that your giving may be in secret. Right? Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Look at those verses and you see Jesus pointing you past this motivation called other people, where we give when other people are there, past the motivation called us or ourselves, where we give when we feel like it. And he says this, man, why not switch it to this? Just make your motivation God and what God has done in your life. What he's given you, the way that he's blessed you, you do that, you move toward this spiritual missional motivation, and all of a sudden you grab hold of this invitation and you spend it for all it's worth. You walk into these Acts 3 opportunities and you see them. I should say that. You notice Acts 3 opportunities. And then you begin to say, hey, here's what I can do about it. Right? Because my heart is changed. I'm giving. And I'd say this, if you give because your heart's been changed, if you give because you want to bring a little bit of heaven on earth, a little bit more love and joy and peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control into people's life, if you want to bring a little bit more function, you want to bring a little more assistance into people's lives, Fiesta's coming. Fiesta's coming, get ready for it. If you're giving because you want to join God in changing the world that is into the world that ought to be, watch out. Right? Fiesta's coming. Fiesta's coming. If you're giving because of your belief and conviction that, and here it goes, God owns it all. He's entrusted us with some and expects us all to excel in this grace of giving. Time, talent, treasure, you bring it so the needs of people for which he's given his all, his only son, will be met. If you're doing that, Fiesta's coming. Fiesta's coming because here's the truth. When you manage your motivation, you'll begin to bless as you're blessed. And as you bless the way you've been blessed with your life, you'll look down and realize you're not in the same place you were. Whenever you said, you know what, I feel frustrated and I feel stuck. In fact, you're moving forward. My favorite part of that story in Acts chapter 3 is what comes next. Right? It's not even all the way through the story. I just like this next part. It says in verse 4 that Peter and John, they have their avatar moment. I see you, They tell the guy, hey, look at us. Look at us. You got it. Guy's ashamed of his life. Give if you can. Look at us. The guy looks at him and it says he expects something from him. He expects money from him. There it is. Problem is, they ain't got any money. So what else can they do? And I like what Peter says. He says, the silver and gold I don't have, but what I have, I give you. What I have, I give you. What a good line. What a good line and what a good application, because you read from there and you realize this. He says, what I have, I give you. And then he does. Then he does. Friends, it's my prayer that the same could be said of us this morning. That your eyes would be opened by God to the Acts 3 opportunities that he's put in your life. And that he would find you saying, you know what? I may not have it all, but what I have, I'll give. If it's useful, here it goes. My time, my talent, my treasure. My prayer is this, that you would be the sort of person that manages your motivation well, that you'd be a 2 Corinthians 8:5 sort of person who gives yourself first to the Lord and then to what he has, those opportunities he wants you to give into. My prayer is that you would be someone who gives not so that other people can see, Not because you've got some other feeling going on, but because you've been blessed in a mighty way by a God who loves and cares for you. You know, we're going to have a moment this morning, right now, to just consider this idea right here that God is calling us to spend our lives in this direction, that Jesus is giving us this invitation. And here's how I want us to just move into this moment right now. We're going to stand and sing here in a second, and as we do, I just want you to find one area, one Acts 3 opportunity in your life, and ask God, okay, how can I meet it? Some of you, you're like, I don't know what. Just pick one relationship and go, God, all right, help me. What's one way I can next step this dog? You know, God, hook me up here. What can I do? All right, or give me someone that I can pester and say, yo, hook me up, right? Just pick one. Just pick one. What Acts 3 opportunities God given you? And let's step into that moment and realize it for what it is. It's a moment to meet a need. A moment to make this choice, to take an action, to meet a need that changes that situation and that life. Right? What sort of world do you want to create anyway? Let's get about that. Why don't you stand and I'll pray for you. If you want to receive Christ today, maybe you've been coming here for a while and you're going, it's time I started following Jesus. I've been hearing about these invitations. I'm ready to step into that life and follow Him formally. I want to get baptized. You can come up and talk to me. You can do it now or after. We can do that. If you're already following Jesus, let's follow Him in this. Let me pray and get us started. Lord God, I pray right now for good clarity of thought in this room. God, I pray for clear communication, that we would hear well from You and that we would hear most clearly from You what You want in our lives. God, speak into us about these moments and how we can shape them in Your direction. Shape them because we've been changed. Shape them because we've received much. Thank You that You've withheld from us nothing, not even Your Son. But God, You've blessed us richly. May we live lives in light of that. It's in Your name I pray. Amen.